Hey everybody, hope everyone has been enjoying this semester. I'm going to present today on Module 4.2, the second of the student-led presentations for this semester. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the knowledge of instructional methodologies in environmental education. So there are many methods of education when it comes to environmental topics. It allows a lot more flexibility that other subjects and even other sciences may not have in a classroom setting. In environmental education, one might not even have to stay in a classroom setting. It can be taken outdoors for some hands-on learning. Um, Another thing to consider when teaching environmental subjects is selecting relevant topics to both the age group you're teaching to um, and the subject matter you're teaching on. We want students to really be engaged in the material and fully comprehend what they're learning. So in order to do this, there is a variety of teaching methods available to teach the subject matter. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the different methods of learning that can be used in the subject. The first is going to be hands-on learning. Hands-on observation can be done in both a classroom setting, or you can actually go out into the environment to really get some hands-on learning. Um, this really encourages student interaction with the environment. It allows them to get closer to nature to fully understand what they're learning about. It also helps with some problem solving skills and some increased retention. When you're out there actually experiencing something hands on, you're much more likely to remember that experience than simply memorizing a term in a book. Hands on observation can be something as simple as taking a walk through a local park and looking at different species, or looking at different human impacts on the environment around that they're taking a tour through. So there's a lot of different options when it comes to hands-on observation. The second method is inquiry. Now, inquiry is basically just asking questions about a subject matter. So in order to ask questions about a subject, you have to fully understand it in the first place. So this will promote a deeper understanding of the topic. Um, it helps to engage the students as fully as possible. They really have to understand the context and the content, and then they create questions from that learning experience. So this might be a situation where you have, content learning on one day, and then you go in with an inquiry day the next day or later within the lecture. The next subject would be cooperative learning. So cooperative learning is working within a group, either on a group project or working with a group to understand the subject matter. This really creates a lot of relationships with students. It puts students in situations they might not have been in before, letting them get to know their classmates. It allows for social support within the students. They can lean on one another and really build those bonds. They can also kind of bounce their ideas off of one another. It allows them to really work together to understand the content while helping with social skills at the same time. Students can learn from other students and look at topics in a way they might not have considered themselves, which can help them gain an understanding that they might not have had before on certain material. The next one is community-based action research. Um, this is kind of a different sort of learning that is not used as commonly or not as familiar as some of the other types of learning styles. This allows for students to address issues that are directly within their community. So a lot of times when we look at environmental topics, we look at it from a very broad perspective, but this allows students to engage in topics that actually directly affect them. It can be kind of seen as a little more hands-on, um, and really engages students in the material. The next topic focuses on investigating environmental issues. Now, within the environmental science, there is a lot of environmental issues that need to be looked at. By allowing students to fully understand these issues, we create a deeper understanding of the material. It allows them to apply topics that we find in classes and put them out there into the real world and see how the subjects that are studied are really influencing the world around them, sometimes in a negative way. It can also promote a deeper care about the environment. If students fully understand the issues that are affecting the environment, they might want to become more active in helping with those issues and seeing an improvement going forward. Next type of learning is called service learning. So service learning is almost a combination of community service and academic learning. It is engaging students in community service projects that are related to the subject matter that you're studying. This really gets students involved in the issues. If they are, working towards solving an issue, they're really going to remember doing that. They're going to remember that experience. They're going to remember that subject matter. Um, and they're really going to hopefully um, care about what they're doing and care about that topic and remember that in their future experiences when it comes to their impact on the environment, especially in that area that they were involved in. So the next topic is the use of simulations and models. So hands-on learning is great, but obviously we don't have every environmental situation at our fingertips where we can go out and see something, see a phenomenon happening. But what we can do is simulate that. We can run computer programs and really get students as close as we can to that hands-on experience. We could maybe do a simulation of the water cycle in a classroom so students can see on a smaller scale how that water cycle works when, on a large scale, it sometimes can be hard to grasp for those younger students. Um, Models can be used kind of in that same way. There's, several different types of models. There's models that show numbers, like real environmental impacts on with hard facts. Um, but then there's also models that are very similar to simulations or models that can show 3D concepts to really engage students in the material. The next topic is the look at case studies. Now, case studies are a really effective tool in engaging students in the subject material. So students can learn about the subject and then they can look at a real world case study, how these topics apply to the real world. This involves a lot of critical thinking in integrating that educational material into the real life situation and problem solving and seeing how this situation played out. Case studies are really, just brief glimpses into something scientifically significant that happened that involves a really particular type of subject matter. The next topic is problem-based learning. Now, there's a lot of problem solving involved in many of the other methodologies that involve critical thinking, but this is really a open-ended question that is presented to students. This really requires a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. The students are motivated to solve that problem, and in that motivation, they're learning that subject material. It involves a lot of problem-solving skills, um, critical thinking, as well as really creativity to find a solution to the problem that they are presented with. Leaving something open-ended means that there can be multiple correct answers, there can be multiple solutions. Um, that is really where that creativity aspect comes in and allows students to really think outside the box and find what they think is the best problem to, or the solution to the problem rather. It can also involve a lot of group thinking. If we present that question to the entire group, they can bounce ideas off of one another and really have a discussion that gets involved in the subject. And the next one is project-based learning. Who hasn't been involved in some project-based learning? Um, in project-based learning, students are assigned a topic and they present, not necessarily present, or they create a project on the subject. This really gets a good in-depth understanding of the material. It involves a lot of creativity. A lot of times projects are somewhat open-ended. It allows them to create and present material in the best way they think. Um, so you've got some critical thinking, there's some curiosity. You also have project management skills, which is a good life skill to have for students. It really allows them to manage their time well, as well as meeting their deadlines and creating a quality project. The next type of learning is storytelling. I think this is our second to last learning methodology. Storytelling is a really powerful tool. Um, People are really good at remembering stories. This is mainly because it can really appeal to a bunch of different types of learners. There are typically three types of learners. You think of visual, people who look at something and learn by seeing it, auditory learners, those who listen to maybe a lecture and pick up the material that way, and then there's kinesthetic. Those are people who learn hands-on, doing things. So storytelling can really appeal to all three types of learners. The visual, because by telling a story, you're creating those visual images within the mind. It might not be a physical image right in front of them, um, but your mind creates those images and they remember it that way. Auditory, obviously, if you're telling a story, you're going to learn the auditory. Kinesthetic, with storytelling, it can cause almost an emotional response. This is really the way that kinesthetic learners can learn through storytelling. I think storytelling is a great use of um, environmental knowledge, and it really engages the students and helps them remember the material better as you're presenting it. And the last thing we're going to talk about is future problem solving. This encourages students to look towards the future and maybe look ahead a few steps and see how we can implement things now that can solve future problems that may arise. This really is a way of teaching students how to think and prepare students for future situations. We're all going to need to learn to think ahead as the students grow older. So this is a critical thinking tool that is really important to them. It's not so much the material that you're teaching as the way you're teaching students to think to deal with the future situations they can come up with. This is also another exercise in creativity, thinking outside the box, really understanding the subject matter, and then going one step further with it. Okay, so those are all of the different methodologies. There are a lot of things that need to be considered when trying to decide which methodology is going to be best for the students you're presenting to and the environment that the information has to be presented in. You can look at the different learning objectives for the subject material. You might have a different goal based on each different um, topic that you're covering. You need to look at the characteristics of your learners. Will age group will definitely matter. Do your students respond well to hands-on learning? Are they able to go into those real world situations and really concentrate on what they're supposed to be learning? Another thing is time requirements. You don't have all the time in the world to present this material, and if the place you want to go out for your tour is 2 hours away, that might not be necessarily feasible. Some of these types of learning involve communities, either the community service and things like that. So you really have to take in consideration the community dynamics and if that is a possibility for you. Available resources that can be involved with the models and simulations. There are different resources available to educators that you can use in your teaching methods, but some resources just simply won't be available depending on the situation that you're in. And then last is the instructional setting. Are you teaching outdoors, indoors? Do you have the ability to go outdoors? Safety considerations when you are outdoors, things like that. So in conclusion, that is just a brief look at some of the different instructional methods that can be used when teaching environmental topics. Like I said previously, there is a wide variety of methods available, and I think the subject material really allows for a lot of flexibility. So I hope everyone enjoyed, and if you have any other questions or considerations, feel free to get in contact with me. Thank you.